And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. Energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day. बनेगा स्वस्थ इंडिया, one world hygiene.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Landslide devastation in Kerala's Wayanad. Join NDTV.
You are watching The World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Poland and Ukraine between the 21st and 23rd of August. The focus of Mr. Modi's visit to Poland is centered around defense and strategic alignment. The Prime Minister is expected to go to the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, from Warsaw for half a day. His visit to Ukraine will be his first visit to the country after the Ukraine-Russia war broke out. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv on another Middle East tour to push for a ceasefire in Gaza, but Hamas raised doubts about the mission just hours after he landed by accusing Israel of undermining his efforts. The U.S. Secretary of State will meet with Mr. Netanyahu in his 10th trip to the region since the war began. Democratic officials and delegates are assembling in Chicago in the U.S. for the first day of the Democratic National Convention. The convention's first day will include a speech by the U.S. President Joe Biden, and the second day will focus on Democrats' message of optimism to contrast with that of the Republicans. Well, our big focus, Prime Minister Modi will be in Poland and Ukraine as per reports between the 21st and the 23rd of this month. And Prime Minister Modi is set to land in Warsaw, where he's expected to actually hold talks with the Polish president as well as the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. The focus of our Prime Minister's visit to Poland is centered around defense and strategic alignment, we're told. The Polish Foreign Ministry says that this visit will focus on enhancing political and economic cooperation between our two nations. Now, Prime Minister Modi's one-day visit to Poland would actually mark the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to that country in about 4 decades, in 40 years, after Maharaja Desai visited back in 1979. Now, a little bit of history for you. Former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi had visited the country before Mr. Desai. But this visit of Prime Minister Modi also coincides with the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between India and Poland. The other big touchdown, though, our Prime Minister's proposed visit to Kyiv thereafter, which comes nearly a month after he visited Russia and his friend Putin, which actually drew critical comments from Western capitals. Interestingly, Ukraine claims it's fully captured a strategic Russian town in the Kursk region, among its first ever serious successes, as Moscow evacuates more residents. But India's stance on Russia's war in Ukraine has drawn international attention. In fact, my colleague Uma Shankar breaks down the details for you.
I am here at the good Maharaja Square in Warsaw, built in the memory of Jam Sahib Shri Digvijay Singh Ji, Maharaja of Navnagar, Gujarat. During the World War II, Maharaja saved thousands of orphan Polish children from the atrocities and attacks of Nazi Germany and Soviet Red Army. With the help of Commander Anders of Polish Army, he got the kids brought to Navanagar, Gujarat, gave them shelter, food, education and everything which they needed at that point of time. Poland still remembers Maharaja's contribution from the core of its heart. Jam Sahib never took any financial help for his contribution, but he wanted to have a street named on him, but it was never fulfilled in his lifetime. When in 1989 Poland got the full independence from Soviet and a government influenced by it, decision was taken and this memorial was built in 2014. PM Modi is the first Indian Prime Minister visiting Poland after 45 years. He will be here too to pay the homage on Maharaja's memorial. This shows the significance of this place. Actually, India-Poland relation has many historical background and Maharaja's humanitarian contribution is one of the most memorable thing. It connects India and Poland on a very emotional ground. After paying the homage here, PM Modi will be meeting the students of the Jam Sahib school, again built in the memory of Maharaja. Apart from the political engagements, this is going to be one of the key part of people-to-people engagement during the Warsaw visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is the memorial of Poland's unknown soldiers who sacrificed their lives for Poland in different wars. This includes Polish soldiers who lost their lives during the First World War and the Second World War. According to information given to us here, during the First World War, when such guns were used, that the bodies of Polish soldiers who lost their lives on the war front were mutilated and it was not possible to identify them. Their identity and names could not be known. That's why this memorial has been named as Memorial of Unknown Soldiers. Here the eternal fire remains lit 24 hours a day. This is a very similar memorial like we were having at Amar Jawan Jyoti at India Gate in New Delhi and the National War Memorial built after that. Guards are always posted here, which changes every hour's time. This memorial is actually a symbol of Poland's military resolve. Poland had to go through many battles for its independence and had to face the powerful armies of Germany and Soviet Union. Facing many challenges, Poland gradually ensured its independence. This place is not only a military memorial but also a symbol of Poland's national identity. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaching here during his visit to Poland and honoring these unnamed soldiers of Poland on behalf of India shows how India has been stood shoulder to shoulder with Poland. Be it the Battle of Monte Cassino, in which Indian soldiers also contributed, or the battle in which the Polish army fought on its own, suffered martyrdom of thousands of soldiers and strengthened itself as a nation. Paying tribute to a very important monument of the wars and the barbarities imposed on the Poland shows that India not only remembers the bloody history of Poland but also how to build a common path to future with the memories of the entire history. This is a message for that too.
Meanwhile, this week in Chicago, Democrats will formally nominate a very different presidential candidate than they expected to just a couple of months ago. All the focus will be on Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, both of whom Democrats already nominated via virtual roll call earlier this month. But the US President, Joe Biden, is set to open the Democratic National Convention with a speech. Now, this convention in Chicago is expecting 50,000 visitors, including 5,000 delegates and alternates. Organizers also anticipate tens of thousands will take to the streets actually to protest outside of the convention, particularly over the war in Gaza. Protests are held every day from Sunday through Thursday, with the largest being planned for Monday, we're told. But you know the big focus, the 5 things to watch at the DNC. Democrats are kicking off their convention in Chicago to formally nominate Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to top their 2024 presidential ticket. Now, the gathering marks an opportunity for Democrats to ride the good vibes around Kamala Harris, who last month was elevated as the party's de facto nominee after Joe Biden actually ended his own bid. We are told that the convention is anticipated to be heavy on messages of freedom, as Kamala Harris and Tim Walz run against former President Donald Trump and his Senator J.D. Vance. But here are the 5 things you need to watch out for at this year's DNC. Now, Kamala Harris has been enjoying a nearly month-long honeymoon since Biden dropped out, riding a wave of flattering social media praise. That boost is likely to continue this week, and for a short time afterwards, many argue, enjoying a traditional post-convention bump. But speculation abounds about how big of a festival this will be, with whispers of whether big-name performers such as Taylor Swift and Beyoncé will make an appearance. But after the convention, however, the question will be how long the good times can roll. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will face off at their first debate on the 10th of September, and a good performance there could actually extend Kamala Harris's honeymoon. Harris has framed her campaign, meanwhile, around a message of freedom, even down to highlighting Beyoncé's hit song of the same name. But analysts highlight that the strategy is more forward-thinking rather than Biden's rallying cry, which actually goes back to the January 6, 2021 insurrection, an event that Democrats still mention but appear to resonate less with voters agitating for a more long-term vision. The third thing, Joe Biden will deliver a speech. It's going to be a huge reception, as per political watchers, we're told. Fourthly, while Biden's debate and age were the chief factors in ending his political career, he was also criticized from the left over his handling of the war in Gaza. And those detractors are not going away just because he's no longer a Democratic nominee. Protests over the rising death toll in Gaza will be held blocks away from the Chicago's United Center, and delegates who were sent to the convention by uncommitted votes in various states have full access to the event floor, with nothing to stop them from interrupting the proceedings. As we speak at the moment, it's unclear precisely how much the convention will deal with the war and if there will be any interruptions at all. Lastly, as you're well aware, conventions for both parties are primarily occasions to highlight leaders, chiefly the presidential nominees. But they also serve as opportunities to elevate rising stars. Democrats have not said who this year's keynote speaker will be, but their pick could indicate who they view as a future party leader and in what ideological direction the Democratic Party in the US is heading. Meanwhile, many would argue that Kamala Harris stole Donald Trump's Republican convention bounce. Now, polling conducted in the immediate run-up to this week's Democratic convention in Chicago actually shows the vice president entering not just with momentum, but with a slight advantage over Donald Trump nationally and in most key battleground states, which is actually a dramatic reversal from the big hole that Joe Biden was in before he abandoned his candidacy just 4 weeks ago. Now, as per the latest poll, Kamala Harris leads Donald Trump 49% to 45%. This poll was released just days before the Democratic National Convention began. The Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll shows how the party's fortunes have actually changed since Joe Biden suspended his re-election campaign and Harris took over. She and her running mate, Tim Walz, could now use this DNC to both define themselves and also boost their party's prospects as well as their own momentum. Meanwhile, people gathered for a rally near the intersection of Michigan Avenue, far from the only demonstration expected in Chicago this week. Trucks lined the streets of Chicago just on Sunday ahead of what will be a busy week as thousands arrived for the DNC, which starts today. However, Sunday marked the first day of numerous publicly announced demonstrations. Now, as per local media, almost 270 organizations from across the United States have joined the coalition to march on the DNC. Thousands of activists, some of who you see on your screens at the moment, are expected to converge on Chicago this week for the Democratic National Convention, hoping to call attention to abortion rights, economic justice, and the war in Gaza. Well, with that, let's turn our attention now to the Middle East. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv on another Middle East tour to push for a ceasefire in Gaza. But Hamas raised doubts about the mission just hours after he landed by actually accusing Israel of undermining his efforts. Antony Blinken will use his 10th diplomatic mission to the Middle East since the start of the Israel-Hamas war to press for the quick conclusion of an elusive ceasefire agreement. This visit comes after the White House proposed a new bridging plan on Friday to bring Hamas and Israel closer to a deal. Talks are actually set to resume this week. But at stake for the Biden administration is ending Gaza's humanitarian crisis, but also averting a broader war with Iran, which has hinted it will delay any attack on Israel while the talks continue. Preceding Blinken's visits were his French and British counterparts. In fact, in a joint article on Sunday, the pair actually warned of a cycle of violence, stating clearly that one miscalculation and the situation risks spiraling into an even deeper and more intractable conflict. Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking the finer details for us. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, what are the details we know about the proposed ceasefire agreement, and what further details can you share regarding Blinken's plan of action in the Middle East this time around?
See, first regarding Blinken's visit, this is 9th visit to the Middle East since October 7, once the war broke out between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And we'll just explain what is the ceasefire deal. The ceasefire deal perhaps suggests that in the first part of the deal is that there should be a 6 weeks pause in the entire war, and then Hamas will release some of the hostages. What is being believed is that perhaps more than 111 hostages are still with Hamas, out of which around 39 are believed to be dead. In the second phase of the entire ceasefire plan is that Hamas will then release all the hostages, and there will be no war, there will be permanent ceasefire. In the third stage of the ceasefire plan is that all the parties, all the stakeholders, maybe some Arab countries, Israel, and a governing body in Gaza will look for the reconstruction of the entire Gaza Strip. Now, where is the bottleneck? The bottleneck suggests that perhaps Hamas and Israel are not agreeing for control of the Gaza Strip. Israel believes that the Philadelphia corridor, the border between Egypt and Gaza near the Rafah border crossing, should not go to Hamas, is what Israel is insisting. But Hamas says that they can't leave the Gaza Strip. This is one of those bottlenecks which is being sort of negotiated between Israel and Hamas through the key negotiators like Qatar, Egypt, and even the US diplomats. Now, why this is a key meeting right now? Because we saw last week the ceasefire talks happening in Qatar. It went on for 2 days, and this week around the ceasefire talks the negotiations will be held in Cairo, Egypt's capital. And that is exactly why Antony Blinken is in Israel. He wants to convince both the parties, but first in Israel he will be talking to Mr. Netanyahu, then Israeli President, and also Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. But the bigger bottleneck is that Hamas has not been part of this negotiation. They keep accusing Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, of sabotaging any negotiation talks. The same is happening from Israeli side, where Mr. Netanyahu blames Hamas for sort of sabotaging the negotiation talks. And that is why, to bring both the parties on the table, to bring both the parties on the same page, Mr. Antony Blinken has flown into Israel. After that, he will visit Cairo. He will meet the Egyptian Intel Chief, Egyptian Prime Minister there, and then they will extend the ceasefire talks. But as of now, what Hamas believes is that Mr. Biden, the US President, he had proposed a ceasefire deal back in May, and that ceasefire deal should be implemented. Also, to tell our viewers that the first time a negotiation happened was in October last year, after 1 month of the war, when Hamas had released around more than 100 hostages, and Israel had to release more than 200 Palestinian prisoners. So both the parties are negotiating it hard, but people involved, or the stakeholders involved in this negotiation, feel that perhaps it will take much more time to finalize the deal and get both the parties on the same page.
As always, Ghazali, thank you so much for taking us through the detailed plan of action. Well, shortly before Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a cabinet meeting that there are areas where Israel can be flexible, but here's the key: he unspecified areas where it won't be. The renewed push to conclude a ceasefire comes as the Palestinian death toll in Gaza has climbed past 40,000 since the war began. These statistics as per the Palestinian Health Ministry. Meanwhile, the US Secretary of State, he actually has quite an action-packed schedule over the next 48 hours. We will be bringing you the latest details with my colleague Mohammad Ghazali. Now this, as Israeli police are investigating an explosion that killed a person in Tel Aviv on Sunday evening. The person who died is believed to have been carrying the explosive material, according to reports. And a second person was moderately injured after being hit in the lower body by a shrapnel and was rushed to hospital. Now, according to reports, it was too early to say whether it was a terrorist attack, but police say they received dozens of calls reporting the loud explosion on the Halehi street in Tel Aviv. Well, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break.
Hi, I'm Shreya Saran. Kerala's Wayanad area is hit by devastating landslides, resulting in loss of lives and livelihood. Kerala needs your help right now. Let's join NDTV initiative. Come, donate, let's rebuild Wayanad.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code, and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this maze of the future, you can't wish away health. It's time to become more resilient. "10 years of Banega Swasth India, we have grown and achieved so many milestones. And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. Energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day. Banega Swasth India. One world hygiene.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Landslide devastation in Kerala's Wayanad. Join NDTV's initiative. Donate for Kerala.
Hi, I'm Shreya Saran. Kerala's Wayanad area is hit by devastating landslides, resulting in loss of lives and livelihood. Kerala needs your help right now. Let's join NDTV initiative. Come, donate, let's rebuild Wayanad.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code, and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this
Welcome back. Well, hundreds took part in the 42nd annual India Day Parade on Madison Avenue. The annual New York City Parade takes place 3 days after India's Independence Day. However, this year's event sparked controversy. A carnival float featuring Uttar Pradesh's Ram Mandir for the India Day Parade in New York City sparked controversy, with a number of groups calling it anti-Muslim. But the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America, which organized the float, had earlier said that it represents a Hindu place of worship, and the Hindu American Foundation had said it was an exercise of free speech. Meanwhile, with the world's largest population growing, India and China have often been pitted at loggerheads. My colleague Gauri Dwivedi spoke to Nirav Patel. For all this and more, listen in.
Mr. Patel, thanks so much for taking out the time and speaking to me, speaking to NDTV. My first question to you, sir, we speak at a time when India is celebrating its 78th Independence Day. I want to ask you this, that as we crystal ball gaze and look towards the future, how do you view India's journey to 2030 from here on?
Look, I think it's a pleasure to have this chance to be able to speak during a very important period in India's both history as a way to reflect on significant achievements, but most importantly, as you note, to really think about what the moment in time means for India. And from an economic perspective, I think India is sitting at the beginning phases of a very significant economic super cycle that not only is about inward investments that are flowing into India at a much higher basis, but also as it relates to hitting critical economic development objectives that are front and center of course, not only the political leadership, but the day-to-day lives of the Indian people.
What do you think will be the next phase of India's growth? Do you think it will be driven more by manufacturing, or do you think it will be more driven by AI and tech? How do you see that?
Well, look, I think candidly, the manufacturing story is something that is in the beginning phases of being seen in terms of how quickly can India attract the type of global manufacturing capability that it aspires to attract. And the reality is there's a number of economies, whether in Vietnam or in Thailand or Mexico, that are all gunning for those same type of manufacturing investments. And you're right to point out that Indian policies that are meant to attract that are making India a competitive destination for manufacturing. But if I were to make a bigger bet on the drivers of India's economic future, I think the high technology sector will continue to be an area where there is definitional as well as defining characteristics that separate India from the global pathway of who ends up becoming kind of the victor of the 21st century technology competition arena. And if I look at AI and you look at the depth of programming capability, new set of businesses that are emerging on a daily basis based on the entrepreneurial culture that exists in many pockets of India, I think that's a bet that, in my view, would drive the type of economic acceleration that India aspires.
All right, Mr. Patel, thanks so much for speaking to me and speaking to NDTV. This has been a very enriching conversation as far as India's role and its future going forward.
Well, thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Landslide devastation in Kerala's Wayanad. Join NDTV's initiative. Donate for Kerala.
Hi, I'm Shreya Saran. Kerala's Wayanad area is hit by devastating landslides, resulting in loss of lives and livelihood. Kerala needs your help right now. Let's join NDTV initiative. Come, donate, let's rebuild Wayanad.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code, and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this maze of the future, you can't wish away health. It's time to become more resilient. "10 years of Banega Swasth India, we have grown and achieved so many milestones. And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day. Banega Swasth India. One World Hygiene.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Landslide devastation in Kerala's Wayanad. Join NDTV's initiative. Donate.
Hi, I'm Shreya Saran. Kerala's Wayanad area is hit by devastating landslides, resulting in loss of lives and livelihood. Kerala needs your help right now. Let's join NDTV initiative. Come, donate. Let's rebuild Wayanad.
Get the magic of the best working for you now.
India will hear that matter on Tuesday, while the victim's father has said that he's lost faith in Mamata Banerjee's government, and protests continue across the country. And politics speaks as far as the Bengal doctor murder and rape case is concerned. It's TMC versus TMC on the possible role of Kolkata's top court, and if the Kolkata Police Commissioner should be subjected to custodial interrogation. Now, the BJP leaders have slammed TMC and the questioning as far as that initial hurried probe is concerned. And it's the Congress versus the BJP on the government's lateral entry scheme. It is Rahul Gandhi who slammed the centre over the lateral entry move, and reservations of the SC, ST and OBC is being snatched away. Other comments that were made by Rahul Gandhi, and of course the criticism of that move has had a boomerang effect on him. According to the BJP, it was the UPA government which had developed the concept in the first place. And it is the heat as far as the Chief Minister of Karnataka is concerned in the Mudda scam. That is now, as far as the Chief Minister is concerned, the Chief Minister will be challenging the Governor's prosecution nod in court. That's coming up in High Court today. The Chief Minister to hold CLP meeting on the 22nd of August. Former Jharkhand Chief Minister Chapai Soren hits out at JMM. He has said that he was insulted by his own party, and a switch over to the BJP is making rounds. And amid this, Chapai Soren has gone ahead and listed out 3 options that lie ahead of him. Let's get your top focus, and that's regarding the Chief Minister of Karnataka, Siddaramaiah. Now, senior advocates Abhishek Manu Singhvi and Kapil Sibal to file a petition on behalf of the Chief Minister. Do remember that the Chief Minister is going to be taking up this matter in the High Court today regarding the Governor giving a nod as far as the prosecution of the Chief Minister in the Mudda scam is concerned. So, it will be, in fact, Abhishek Manu Singhvi and Kapil Sibal that are scheduled to arrive in Bengaluru this morning. The Chief Minister will hold discussions with the legal team today in the morning before taking up that matter in a court, and that's expected later today. Now, the Karnataka Chief Minister has ruled out his resignation. He said there's just about no question of resigning following the Governor granting the sanction to prosecute him in connection with the Mysuru Urban Development Authority site allotment scam, and said that he has done just about no wrong in order to step down, terming the Governor's decision as anti-constitution and against the law. He's gone on to say that I will be questioning this in court, and he will battle it out legally. He's also called the Governor a puppet as far as the hands of the central government is concerned. Now, after the Governor gave that green light to act upon, the Chief Minister in the land allotment scam. So, it is the case that's going to be coming up in High Court, but of course, it is the Chief Minister, who's gone on to say that it is the governor who should be prosecuted because he is the one who is a puppet in the hands of the central government and that he's acting on the behest of the BJP. So the Congress-led government, they're all backing Siddaramaiah, whether it is also the Deputy Chief Minister DK Shivkumar, who has gone on to call it undemocratic and unconstitutional. He's gone on to say that this is absolutely unfair and there's just about no question of Siddaramaiah resigning. Now we have my colleague Sunil joining us. Sunil, what time is the case coming up in the High Court today?
Well, it will be listed, and as I wish to play what Mr. Singhvi told us very categorically in an exclusive interview of how really the governor, in terms of sanction of prosecution, has gone beyond his brief. There is a cabinet resolution which very clearly states that this should not have been accepted. If you look at the entire Muda scam issue, the issue is clearly does not directly involve the chief minister, and he does not even have his signature in the merits of the entire case. But not going into that issue tomorrow, as the Congress is alleging, an attempt to destabilize a democratically elected government. If you start taking complaints from everybody else, then we are going to have a situation where every governor is going to ask every chief minister to be prosecuted. So this is clearly a new precedent, which the Congress is opposing, and they say this is an attempt to destabilize a democratically elected government, which has won just a year ago, over a year ago, and more importantly, that there is clearly an attempt to try to unseat Mr. Siddaramaiah. What, of course, it has helped politically, as you pointed out, is only strengthen his hands at this present juncture. The Congress party has rallied around him, the MLAs have rallied around him, and even the internal divisions within the party, be it Mr. DK Shivkumar and others, have ensured at this present juncture to continue to give Mr. Siddaramaiah that support that is required at this present juncture.
Right, Sunil, when asked upon his resignation, he has gone on to say that he'll be putting up a huge fight, and he even went on to ask why should he really be resigning?
Absolutely. They have ruled out the question of resigning. On what grounds should he resign at this stage? There is clearly no question. And this is something that they had anticipated. Not that, Mr. Siddaramaiah has got a bolt out of the blue from Mr. Thawarchand Gehlot. Thawarchand Gehlot, the Karnataka governor, was expected to give the sanction of prosecution. And in fact, there was a meeting prior to that. Legally, Mr. Singhvi, as well as various other lawyers, have been consulted right from day one and looked at the various papers, looked at the various pros and cons. No less than, the Congress president, as well as the leader of opposition, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, had meetings with them, along with Mr. Randeep Surjewala. And it's in that that Mr. Siddaramaiah did not attend a cabinet meeting, allowed the deputy chief minister to chair it, and then give a resolution to reject it. But yet, the governor decided to act on his own and prosecute Mr. Siddaramaiah, give permission to do so. Now the question is, how does it work out politically as well as legally, which is now being fought. One, of course, politically, as you can see, on the streets of Karnataka, and the legally in the High Court. And then if they don't get relief, then they would go to the Supreme Court.
Right, Sunil, we also have Pratibha with us. Pratibha, a big blow as far as the Chief Minister of Karnataka is concerned. He's gone on to say he's done nothing wrong. This is all politically motivated. He has the backing, like Sunil was pointing out, of the entire Congress party, including the Deputy Chief Minister of the state of Karnataka. He's gone on to say, what is it that I've done wrong? And the question of resigning, is absolute, stands no ground. But it is the BJP that's demanding his resignation. So, Sunil, we seem to be having an audio issue with Pratibha. Of course, take us through the grounds as far as, get us a little bit of a background on this Muda case, concerning the land that was given to the wife of Siddaramaiah by her brother.
Well, the case is very simple. It's it relates to the Mysore Urban Development Authority. It pertains to some land being acquired by Mr. Siddaramaiah's brother-in-law at that time, and in lieu of that, they were given plots. Now, it's in that context that these plots that were given not only to him, to his wife, but to whole host of Lingayat leaders, I'm sorry, and various other people who are, top notches in Karnataka. And there was a scheme of, 50-50 if you could do it. They didn't, and that was removed in October. Not going into the details of that entirely in the scheme itself, Mr. Siddaramaiah himself said that I'm ready to, forego this land, provided the Mysore Urban Development Authority gives back the money to the people who had, whose lands were acquired illegally at that time by the Mysore Urban Development Authority. This is, of course, prime land valued at around 8.33 crores, whereas the valuation that has been done is slightly less at around 2-3 crores. So that is the reason why they're saying that there is irregular, allotment, and on what basis was it done. That's the genesis of the crisis. And it's on that context that the BJP and the JDS have been raising an entire issue and requesting and demanding the resignation of the Chief Minister.
Right, Pratibha, back with us. Pratibha, a meeting has been, slated by the Chief Minister, and that meeting is going to be taking place on the 22nd.
That's right. It is a legislature party meeting that has been scheduled on 22nd of August, and that would definitely discuss the counter strategy of the Congress in terms of the legal options as well as other options that could be perhaps pursued, because we are also talking of a legal meeting that will be held this morning with Abhishek Singhvi as well as Mr. Kapil Sibal, where the Chief Minister would be discussing when and how the legal options can be exercised, whether they would be moving the court today or not, is also something that needs to be closely watched, because we are talking of the Congress leaders who have been vehemently denying any kind of truth in the allegation. They have been pointing fingers at the governor, and they've said that they would be exercising every legal option available to fight not just this case but also to fight the protocol that has been followed, or rather not followed, by the governor there. We'll have to wait to see string of events that have been lined up today as well. Statewide protests that have been that are planning to be staged through the day by the Congress leaders. In fact, D.K. Shivakumar himself would be leading one such protest at Freedom Park in Bengaluru, and the BJP in the meanwhile will also be staging protests at the Vidhan Sauda, and we also have this meeting at the legal meeting that I've already spoken about, and all eyes are on the court as well. Back to you.
Right, Pratibha, let's also just listen in to Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who's lambasted the BJP and stated that it's an assault on federalism and that the governor is bound by the aid and advice of the cabinet. Let's listen in.
Governor of Karnataka has given the sanction for prosecution against Mr. Siddaramaiah, and somebody who had anticipated and known about this, the Congress president as well as Rahul Gandhi, the Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Minister, the Congress in charge, Randeep, had been discussing this issue, and I'm joined by somebody who has been consulted in the entire process, and this is something that you were expecting.
I don't think it takes much to expect this, given the inimical nature of the BJP's approach to every known constitutional norm. But let me give you 4 or 5 very interesting facets of this, which your viewers must know. This is an assault on federalism of the worst, cheapest kind. You have fought an election. You spent obscene amounts of money and you lost the election. I am elected there hardly a couple of years ago.